Hi my people, welcome very much to part 2 of what we started, understanding the mind of a victim. What goes through a victim's mind? What goes through people who have gone through abuse over and over again? What happens so that maybe someone ends up staying for so long in an abusive relationship, or maybe sometimes even for we who are looking at the situation from the other side, we end up wondering, why did this person wait for all this time? Why did this person take so long to leave that relationship or to exit? And so the last session we covered Stockholm syndrome, and guess what we are covering today? Today we'll be tackling trauma bonding. This is something else that victims, or rather it is a psychological condition or a psychological response that victims also undergo in the hands of abusers. So what is trauma bonding? Now, trauma bonding is a connection that a person forms towards the person who is causing the physical, emotional abuse or sexual harm in a relationship. It occurs when a person is involved in a toxic, abusive relationship and they end up forming a very strong bond with their abuser. And often they even idealize their abuser. Now, for some people, they believe it is a emotional attachment created by repeated abuse. Remember, we said the mind is very powerful, and where the mind goes, the body follows. So imagine someone who has been exposed to abuse over a long period, and they know no better. They know no other truth. For them, abuse has become the norm. It is part of life. It is how life should be lived. And people who find themselves trauma bonded with the abuser, this is actually what happens. So they undergo an emotional connection that is unconscious. And this is not just unconscious, it is an unconscious way of coping with trauma or abuse. It is mostly present where there is imbalance of power, ongoing abuse, and oscillation or changing between warmth and violence. So guys, you can imagine a situation where there is imbalance of power. So could be a child, parent, an authority figure, child, okay, a parent, child, sorry, not child parent, but a parent child, an authority figure child, a teacher student, for example, a coach athlete, a boss and their employee. All these are scenarios where there is imbalance of power. There is one person who has more power, more authority than the other, and that is a scenario where it is likely to find victims going through trauma bonding. Again, a scenario where there's ongoing abuse. So abuse has happened for so long, over such a long period of time. It has been so consistent until the victim ends up doing what? Ends up normalizing the situation and just getting to a place where they're like, you know what, I think this is normal, this is what happens, this is how people express their love for others, that is how it is. And then the oscillation between warmth and violence. So you find most abusers tend to maximize on this. So one time someone abuses you, the next time they are warm towards you. They will treat you right. For instance, if it's a narcissist, they will love bomb you, tell you how much they love you, tell you how much they're sorry for doing whatever it is that they did. And then you stay for a shorter period or some time, and then the abuse happens again. And then someone comes, they shower you with gifts, they tell you how much you mean to them, how much they appreciate you, how much they love you. And so that oscillation between warmth and violence tends to condition the mind of the victim in such a manner where at times they're even not able to process whatever it is that is happening. Their mind becomes conditioned and they get used to that oscillation, and that becomes something that is actually more harmful to them. That's why you find people staying in abusive relationships for so long, and they will always tell you, I've never really quite understood this person. Maybe I'm the one who wronged him. Because when this person is good to them, they're extremely good. And when this person is bad to them, they are extremely bad. So, like we earlier said, remember, trauma bonding is actually a toxic relationship between the abuser and the victim of the abusive relationship. It can be found in romantic relationships, like I've earlier said, boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, fiancé. It can be found in a marriage setup, for instance, husband, wife. It can be found even between a child and abusive family members. So it could be also an older sibling, a younger sibling, could be a parent child, could be a house manager child, all these things. Could be also a situation where someone who's held hostage by captors, or even a kidnapper situation where someone is kidnapped, and it occurs through cycles of abusive behavior and positive behavior from the abuser. So remember the oscillation that we talked about earlier? That is exactly what we're describing here. So through this way, you get to realize that the abusive behavior is normalized, and whenever positive reinforcement is shown, then it releases an almost addictive dopamine rush. So what happens? It's like a drug. You can imagine. It's like a drug. You get this drug in overdose. It gives you that high. It gives you the dopamine rush. And then someone withdraws it at once. And someone keeps on doing this consistently. So what simply happens is, now with the situation of the abuse, the victim will tend to disregard the negative behavior of the abuser and only focus on the frequent good behavior. So I abuse you today, few seconds or few minutes later, I'm so good to you, I do all the good things to you, I appreciate you, I shower you with love, I apologize, and that gives someone that high and that dopamine rush. And then all of a sudden, when you're barely getting used to me being good to you, I withdraw it and now show you the ugly side, and show you the violent side, and show you the abusive side. Before you even come to terms with whatever it is that is happening, I withdraw that and shower you with all the nice things. So actually what happens is, with time, now that person actually tends to become addicted to that rush, the dopamine rush, the high. And the high that you're talking about here is, the good, the positive reinforcement. And they tend now to focus more on the positive reinforcement or the good behavior, which is actually infrequent, as opposed to focusing on the negative. And with this, you get to realize that now it becomes a cycle of mental and physical abuse, of mental and physical torture, with periods of love and affection, and with periods of abuse, with periods of just being violent. It's a very difficult scenario for anyone to find themselves in, because it puts you in such a bad dilemma. You can barely get to have a hold of whatever it is that is happening. When you were trying to really come to terms with this has already happened. And so it becomes a very tricky situation for anyone to find themselves in. And so these victims actually now find themselves at a place where they have certain dysfunctional attachment that occurs in the presence of danger, shame, exploitation, or the abuse itself. And the victim now falls for this cycle of abuse time and again. They fall for the cycle of devaluation and the positive reinforcement, thus getting to a place of expecting things to change. And this is a very sad scenario. So all this gets them hooked. And so in their mind, they tend to hope that things will get better. They tend to hope that things will change because they've already seen this positive side of this person. They tend to think that, oh, probably he will change. Maybe she will become better. Maybe tomorrow, maybe it's just a scenario that made them react in that manner. Or maybe it's the situation, or maybe I'm the one who provoked this person to react in this manner. And so they tend to hope, you see this bright side? They tend to hope that things are going to change, as opposed to looking at this side, or which this is the reality side, where probably things might never change, things might rarely change. And it's very sad because in my years of practice and the things that I've seen, even when just interacting with victims of abuse actually rarely reduces. The moment abuse begins, it just moves from one level to a higher level to a higher level. It tends to increase. It rarely reduces, because remember, even for this abuser, it's like they get, you see the way it's addictive to the victim? If you ask me, if I'm to shed some light into the mind of the abuser, it also gets addictive to the abuser. It gives them this high of being feeling powerful, this high of feeling, I'm in control, I'm in charge. Yet in real sense, you don't have to be in control or in charge or just put your foot down through abuse or violence. You do not. It is very possible for you to put your foot down in a firm and gentle manner, and not necessarily taking the abusive turn or the abusive road. So how does trauma bonding feel like? This is interesting. Have you ever seen the slot machine that people play? I think we have those machines now in Kenya, like the betting machines, where someone puts a coin and they're supposed to win something. I think that is how it actually feels. It feels like a slot machine where people put in hopes, expecting to get something back. And not just something back, but something good back. But in reality, they don't win most of the times. So someone puts in so much hope, expecting to get something good in return. But in real sense, instead of getting something good in return, what they're getting is the negative, the opposite, and they rarely win. And so this releases a very large rush or a very large amount of dopamine in the brain, leading one to continue with the toxic relationship for the next big win or the next big high or the next rush, thus creating a pattern or a destructive cycle. So what are the symptoms of trauma bonding? 1, a victim agreeing to the abuser's reasoning for abusive behavior. So victim tries to justify the actions of the abuser, who has played on their mental health for so long by maybe gaslighting, always telling them they're the reason for the abuse, blaming it on them. And now this makes the victim now develop a sense of self-doubt, a sense of confusion about the nature of the relationship. Remember what I told you guys? When they're barely trying to understand this side of the abuser, this other side comes in so fast. And so someone is caught in this mix, in this dilemma, in this quagmire of just trying to figure out what exactly is happening. How comes I'm never able to understand this person? One time they're so good to me, they treat me so well. The next time they change into this beast, into this demon, and I can't just explain who this person is. They throw you into some sea of mystery, not just being able to understand what kind of a person this abuser is. They distance oneself from family and friends. So people who are trauma bonded, most often than not, tend to distance themselves from healthy relationships. Those people that are calling you out of the abuse, those people that are trying to tell you, no, something is amiss. This is not how someone should treat you. This is not how things should be. Something is totally wrong somewhere. And so as people are trying to call you out of the abuse, now this victim tends to distance themselves from people who are calling them out of the destructive cycle or patterns of abuse. With the fear, actually, in fact, they tend to fear that the abuse will be brought up. So they just try to avoid you. They build this wall, they build this barrier with the fear of maybe anytime you're interacting with them, you'll end up raising the issue of the abuse. And maybe that's something that they don't want to talk about. That is something that they don't want to come to terms with or to face. They don't want to face reality. And so that's a thing that they don't want to face in reality. And they don't want to hear about it. Okay? And that is why they tend to distance themselves from the healthy relationships. And this just causes them to drown them more in the unhealthy relationship or in the abusive relationship. And remember, the abusers actually thrive in this. So they'll tend to isolate you from healthy relationships, from relationships of people who love you, who tell you the truth. And they make you believe that, you know what, I'm the only person that you can depend on. I'm the only person that you can run to. I'm the only person. It begins and ends with me. And so this person now has this abuser as their quote unquote small god. They're like, but no one will love me, no one can accept me, because already when the abuser has really crushed their ego, has really crushed their self-esteem, and maybe the viewer told them, you know what, no one can love you, you're rubbish, you're very useless, you're worthless. So when someone feeds you with these things every day, now the victim tends to believe, no one can love me, no one can accept me, I cannot hold any other healthy relationship. This, what I'm having right now, is the only relationship that I can have. this is the only person who can tolerate me with all my uselessness and worthlessness, and becomes very sad. The other symptom is the victim becomes defensive. The victim becomes defensive. Anytime an outsider makes an attempt to try and intervene or to try and point out the abuse in the relationship. So you'll find people pointing out the red flags, telling you, no, something is amiss. This is not how things should be. This is not how someone should treat you. No. This is not how things should be running. But what actually happens is the victim basically will just find themselves up at a place where they tend to believe, nope, what you're saying, maybe you're jealous. What you're saying is not the scenario. Remember, they're even blinded. So they tend to believe that whatever it is that they're experiencing is actually correct. That is what they deserve. Maybe because this person has really pulled their ego down, has really crushed their ego to an extent where someone believes that's the best that they can get, that is what they deserve in this life. And anytime you come to try and point out or intervene, you know what they just do? They just lock you out, and they become defensive of the abuse and whatever has been happening. But the abusers use emotional abuse to try and manipulate the image of the victim, convincing them into believing nothing is wrong. Yes, they will actually prove to you that you are the problem, and that is why everything that is happening the way it's happening. And they will make you believe nothing is wrong. I mean, that time I was just mad. You're the one who made me mad. You're the one who pushed me to hit you. You're the one who made me become physical. You're the one who made me abuse you psychologically, emotionally. You're the one who made me abuse you verbally. They will try to make you not see the real picture in a bid to justify themselves. The victims, the other symptom is they're unwilling to take steps into leaving the relationship. So what actually happens is, I said earlier, remember, the abuser has already wounded their ego. He has really battered their self-esteem, and so it just makes the victims feel that they cannot survive. Without this abuser in their lives, they cannot survive. Without this abuser in their lives, they cannot have any other healthy relationship. And remember, this healthy relationship is in quotes, because the abuser has actually made them believe that what they're having is a healthy relationship, which is not the truth. What simply happens is it makes them comfortable in the abusive relationship rather than being out of it. And they may develop a false sense of codependency. Yeah, they tend to be very dependent on the abuser because he's already made them believe, or he or she has made them believe, that no one else can take you in, no one else can withstand you, no one else can stomach you, no one else can just agree to even have you as their friend or in their lives. So then, how does someone break the trauma bond? This is very important. Always leave the relationship as soon as you can before you get trapped. The moment you just sniff or even sense the slightest form of abuse, kindly run for your dear life. Because like I said earlier, abuse does not reduce. In fact, it moves from one level of glory, in quotes, to another. It gets worse with time. So anytime you sense that, my friend, just run for your dear life. Don't start reasoning with yourself and telling yourself the abuser will change. It does not happen like that. Practice self-care. Remember, your physical and your mental well-being is very important. And not just this, even your spiritual, your social well-being is very important. So practice self-care. This can just help you to break the codependency or the dependency that you have on your abuser. And practicing self-care can come in very many ways. Meditation, exercising, speaking with your friends, your family, people who love you, seeing how they can be of help, and not justifying, of course, also the behavior of the abuser. That really helps. Journal. This is a good way of tracking and just keeping track of whatever it is that you have been going through and the kind of abusive behavior that you have been experiencing and how things have been escalating over time. Maybe it started with someone verbal abuse. Next time someone pointed you like this. Next time they slapped you. Next time they gave you a punch. Next time it became blows and kicks. Next time someone gave you, so you're able to actually document that and see, In fact, this abuse is just getting worse. It's not where we started. We started with something very trivial, and remember, no abuse is trivial. Even that verbal abuse should not be taken lightly. So someone is like, it started with a trivial, in quotes, abuse, and now it has actually escalated. It is a good way of just seeing that this abuse is not getting any better, and that is why, that is enough reason you need to out. You need to leave like yesterday. Practice self-positive affirmations. This go a long way in just correcting the perception that the abuser has created in your mind, or even the perception that you have allowed yourself to create in your mind based on the things that you have been hearing, the things that you have been seeing, the kind of treatment that you've been receiving. It helps big time. This helps to boost your self-esteem. Above everything else, seek help. And this, I cannot overemphasize it. Make sure you seek help. Seek help from friends, seek help from family, seek help from psychologists, psychiatrists, seek help from authorities. Seek help. With extra support, it becomes very, I won't really say easy, but it becomes manageable to even just find strength to make the changes, to make the right decisions, and break that bond. Because remember, the key should be to break that bond. The bond that has been developed over time, the bond that you have been would to believe cannot be broken. It is important to break that bond. I hope with that we have learned something. And remember, we have tackled Stockholm Syndrome, and we have also looked at trauma bonding. These are psychological responses, psychological reactions, coping mechanisms, defense mechanisms, if you want to call them so, that victims develop in the hands of the abusers. And with this, I believe if someone is a victim of abuse, then they've been able to just understand maybe one or two things that they might be experiencing, and this has actually given you insight and empowered you to make the right choice, to seek help if necessary, and to just make the necessary steps towards recovering and pulling out of the abuse as early as now. Also, if you know someone maybe who has been going through an abusive relationship, I believe this information will also be of great help, because you can be able to empower them and continue supporting them, speaking reality as it is, and reminding them that this is not what you deserve better. And that way, hopefully, we can be able then to minimize and to reduce the cases of abuse that we see that have gone on for a very long time, leading to deaths, leading to scenarios that are very, very damaging and destructive. Like we said earlier, abuse is a no, and abuse is a crime. No one, and I repeat again, no one should withstand even the slightest form of abuse, because it never gets better. It keeps getting worse and worse. It keeps getting worse and worse. So if you're able to run for your dear life as early as you sniff or detect that abuse has been taking place or is almost taking place, kindly leave, cut those links, and run for your dear life. I believe with this information, we'll be able to make society a better place. We'll be able to make us individuals better people, and we'll also be able to support better those who find themselves in such scenarios. We'll be able to hold their hand and support them better. Kindly keep it locked. Don't leave this page. Don't leave this channel, because we are still tackling the mind of the victim and what goes through their minds as they stay or undergo abuse. Keep it locked, because we still have more psychological reactions and more psychological responses and more coping mechanisms to tackle. Thank you very much for joining me, and have a lovely evening. Goodbye for now, and God bless. And kindly, my people, do not forget to subscribe. Share this page, like it, inform your loved ones to support this channel, so that we can continue growing and continue finding a good balance in life. With that said and done, I love you, my lovely guys, and thank you for always supporting me. Thank you for making this channel your home. From Susie the Psychologist, I want to tell you that we love you very much, and we appreciate each and every one of you. Goodbye, and God bless.